Hello, my name is Adam and welcome back to my channel where I make a tabletop role-playing game from scratch on camera. And today I'm stuck with an ultimatum. What is the setting of my RPG? Now, don't get me wrong, Trollskóg will be Trollskóg. There's still dark magical forest that expands outwards ever so slightly. The forest still has trolls, giants, draug and other nasty creatures, as well as other useful creatures that just live peacefully. In fact, one of my goals with the game is to create a huge ecosystem where everything interacts with each other. But I've not really talked about the human side of this story. What do humans look like? How are their societies and what do they do? In the beginning, when I first started to think about the Trollskóg setting, I just imagined the human side as generic fantasy kind of thing, with a medieval-esque technology, maybe a few different races. I quickly turned down the idea of races since they don't quite fit well in Scandinavian folklore. Well, elves and dwarves and halflings stem from Norse, Nordic and Germanic folklore, but they're not the Tolkien kind of races that are the staple in fantasy genre. That left me with humans. Now, don't get me wrong, I love humans. I have a lot of human friends. So I'm not against using only humans, but the setting sort of turns a little dull. Don't you think? Think about it with Jedi and Sith. Jedi are the good guys, but with the major flaw of not being allowed to feel any emotion. The Sith are, well, the bad guys, but they look freaking cool. Now, if we change the Jedi to also be bad guys, and the Sith to be less bad guys, the only thing separating them is that Siths look cool and Jedis don't. And that's the problem I'm facing. My civilized side just isn't cool and edgy enough, but I continued on with my setting. Now, one thing that I do in all my creative processes is to just leave things be if I don't have an answer to them. That may be also why my RPG development is so slow, because I don't actively try to find a solution if I find an obstacle. The reason is because my unconsciousness is a lot smarter in figuring out new ideas if it just gets time to process it. I put a problem on hold, then through my everyday life I think about things, experience new things, and it all gets tacked on my unconsciousness until a solution forms. Others might call it procrastination, but I think it's the best method I got. So this problem has been stewing in my unconsciousness for a long time, until I looked at the dwarves in Norse mythology. Now, I don't really want to drag too much Norse mythology into my game, since I think it's overdone. But still, how would I portray dwarves in my setting if I added them? Now, dwarves in Norse mythology are similar to the Tolkien dwarves. They like to get drunk and they are superior craftsmen that create the most powerful magic items. They are also sneaky and greedy and try to trick people in order to get better deals. Now, my initial thought was to add the dwarves to the Trollskóg side. They lived in the forest like all the other mythical creatures. But this doesn't sit right, does it? A highly advanced civilization with superior craftsmanship living in a forest full of trolls and giants? That's when I got the idea that instead of having man versus nature, use dwarf versus nature. Think about it. You had a history with humans, dwarves, halflings, and elves, though the elves are less cool than in Lord of the Rings. And one day, the Trollskóg forest started to grow. Everyone is fighting it, but the only one technological advanced enough to build high walls and chopping machines are the dwarves. They are the last bastion of civilization. And isn't that cool? Instead of generic fantasy humans, you play as advanced technology dwarves. The problem I have with dwarves is that they are quite monotonous. Everyone is short, they all have beards, they're always stocky or fat, and there are rarely any women unless women also have beards. And I don't find that inspiring. Maybe right now it's okay, but 100 dwarves down the line, will I still want the next dwarf to be a short bearded alcoholic? Maybe I could change them. Expand their definition. Beardless dwarves, skinny dwarves. I don't know. I've tried to draw some variations, but I'm not happy because they lose their dwarvenness if I draw them differently. Maybe that's okay, but maybe I'm barking up the wrong tree. Let me know down in the comments what you think. Maybe you have some pictures of dwarf variants that could be cool. I put the dwarf idea on the shelf for a while, but still wanted to spice up the setting somewhat. That's when I started to think about what is sort of the epitome of Scandinavia, and that's when I started to look into romantic nationalism. Romantic nationalism started somewhere in the 1700s in Europe. There's a lot of nationalism during the French Revolution and the years that followed, and this created a romanticization of nations. In Scandinavia, this led to a lot of literature and artwork of the picturesque life of farmers. It gave life to the folk costume and rose painting, which is very iconic in Scandinavia. So I tried to draw something inspired by the 1800s romantic nationalism, and I added some World War I diesel punk onto that. Then I tried to see if I could mix romantic nationalisms to Viking-esque stuff. I tried to mix diesel punk with Norse as well. For those of you who don't know, diesel punk is the same as steampunk, only set in the late 1800s to World War II instead of Victorian era of the 1700s, as with steampunk. So currently my setting is dwarves, Norse, diesel punk, and romantic nationalism. It's a bit chaotic, but as you can see, there's just a floodgate of ideas that are pouring into the setting. One tip you can take from this video is that there's something called too many ideas at once when you're trying to do world building. But I think the underlying theme I want are advanced technology and iconic Scandinavian. Whether that is Norse-looking dwarves or romantic nationalistic diesel punk. I don't know yet. I'm gonna have to ask you guys about some opinions about this. So leave a comment down below and let me know where you want me to take this setting. Do you want dwarves with a dash of rose painting or Norse runes? Or World War I soldiers dressed in fall costumes? Let me know down below. And as always, like and subscribe to my channel. I'm hitting 1,000 subs really soon, so click that subscribe button. And don't forget to share this with your GM, they'll probably like it. See ya!